How many times have you been in a work situation where somebody does or says something that infuriates you? It makes you ridiculously angry and you can't even control your emotion. You're so mad. I've been there many, many times in my career. And it's because, quite honestly, I'm just a very passionate person, and maybe you are too. I want to talk to you about how to make sure that emotions don't wreck your career and how to control your emotions more effectively as an executive leader. That's what we're going to talk about today. Welcome to the channel. My name is Tom, and I'm the founder of Vertical Motion, where we help good people become great leaders. If you're somebody who's interested in becoming an executive, or you want to move from the corporate ranks into the entrepreneur ranks, well, check out the link down below to learn more about the programs that we offer. And you can speak with a discovery coach to learn more about what might work for you to help you take the next step in your career or in your life towards financial freedom. So with that, today what we're talking about is how to avoid letting emotion wreck your career. So I have a friend of mine who was a CEO of a 501c6, which is a nonprofit organization. And he's been the CEO of this organization for maybe like 2 years. There are people in the organization who've been there for 10, 12, 15 years. So it's kind of an older organization. It's been around for a while. And there's a lot of people that have kind of been there for a very long time. And so they are used to doing certain things in certain ways, and they have a lot of political alliances, not just with other executives, but also in the board. And you can kind of see where this is going already. So this CEO told me that he's dealing with a situation where he has an employee who this employee is not performing, and they haven't the entire 2 years he's been there. And he has talked with this person's direct supervisor countless times. They've put this person on performance improvement plans. And at the end of the day, this person is still here in this organization, mostly because the CEO doesn't feel empowered to actually deal with this person, because the board has indicated they support this individual. And this person has threatened to create havoc if they were removed from the organization. And so the CEO feels a little bit powerless. In this case, what's happening here is the CEO has completely usurped his authority. So he doesn't have authority in that organization anymore. And until he actually takes unequivocal action that's in alignment with who he is and what he believes, this organization is going to suffer, and so is he. And so it's very likely, quite honestly, that this person is going to leave as CEO of this organization because of this situation. And while I want to blame the person, I actually blame the CEO for this. This is an emotional issue, right? This is the CEO letting their emotions govern and dictate how they make decisions for the benefit of a corporation, or in a nonprofit in his case. And so what he did was he let his empathy for this person and his fear of retaliation and retribution for letting go of someone that he knows he needs to let go of. He let that fear and that doubt and that uncertainty and that empathy all kind of cloud his judgment. He knows what he needs to do, but he can't do it. And so emotion is blocking him from being successful, and it's blocking the organization from growing. I'm also friends with another person who was the number 2 at a $5 billion organization, and his CEO is very erratic. His CEO is someone who shows up with a whole bunch of energy one day and a whole bunch of, like a thunderstorm cloud the next day, spends way too much time golfing and not working on the actual problems of the organization. And this person has been defending the CEO for a long time, for the last 2 years. And there was almost a coup amongst the leadership team to get rid of the CEO. And my friend stopped that from happening and has been protecting the CEO. Well, as things turn out, that CEO basically has decided to fire my friend because he's afraid of him. He's afraid of how powerful he's becoming in that organization. And so this CEO is completely acting on raw emotion, and there's no real control or stability. And so nobody knows what to expect. It's a powder keg situation. It's like walking on glass. You just never know what's going to happen. And these situations are really untenable for everyone. And then let me tell you about a third scenario, which is where I got in trouble. And it was because I was very passionate about a thing that I was working on, and a direct supervisor of mine who used to be a peer, specifically in retrospect, now I understand, he actually wanted what I was building. And he hatched a plan to basically trigger me into acting a way that he knew that I would. And I did. I wound up being let go from that organization by him with the blessing of the owner. which I'm still pretty mad about. But what he did was he triggered my emotions, and he triggered an emotional outburst in the right place at the right time, knowing that I would do that because he knew me really well, as a covert narcissist does, and it caused me to lose my job. So this is where emotion can affect you, not just at the CEO or the number 2 level, but anywhere in the organization. So let's talk about where these emotions come from, why we have them, and how to handle them so that you don't let your emotions actually wreck your career or your executive role. The first and most important thing to remember is that none of this will matter in 5 years from now. Whatever is happening right now in your organization, even mostly in your life for the most part, what's happening right now just will not matter 5 years from now. I go back 5 years, that was now 2020, and I think about what was going on in the early part of the year 2020. Everything that was happening for me for then doesn't affect anything I do today. So 5 years later, all of the things that I was emotionally upset about and really worried about, concerned about, all of those things have gone away in the last 5 years. And so when you're in the moment and you see the thing right here in front of your face and it infuriates you or it drives you to straight fear or all of these feelings, remember that 5 years from now, most likely that thing won't be the thing that you're thinking about, and you'll have forgotten all about this instance. So remember, zoom out a little bit and recognize that the thing you're dealing with in the moment is a big thing, but when you zoom way out and look at things from a longer perspective, it's not that big a deal, really, usually. Sometimes it is, but usually it's not. The second thing to do is to decide how you want to react in those kinds of situations. And this is a really hard skill to grow, but if you can master this, this is going to be super powerful for you. And so the idea here is to give yourself a little bit of space or time in between action and reaction, right? So somebody says or does something that drives you insane. You go straight up a wall and you're at 100 and you're ready to pin someone now, right? So you're there. What do? Take a moment, even if it's just a split second, and try to ask yourself this question: what is the best response to this stimulus right now? And this is really hard to do. I know, I get it, I understand. When our emotions are triggered, when our adrenaline system is like in overdrive and we're ready to just come across the boardroom table and punch someone, right? I get that. Try to build this ability to pause and ask yourself, what is the best reaction you could have that would create the best outcome for you? And this is important. When you can do this, what happens is when someone goads you into an emotional response, you can stop, pause, smile, and then say something that will change the entire dynamic of the situation. That is far more powerful than just shouting right back at them or shouting over them, right? When you can pause and actually be strategic about what you say next, that will help you actually understand how to best handle that scenario as opposed to just blowing up and blurting out all of the things that can get you fired. So take a moment to decide how you want to react to an emotional situation. And then number 3, protect yourself. If you have coworkers who do drive you up a wall, put healthy distance between you and them. So in the case of that CEO who had this person that was a poor performer and was hurting the organization, the CEO had someone that this person reported to. The CEO should have held that person accountable for taking care of the situation. And when that person couldn't, then the CEO would need to step in and do something that the CEO believes, and then let the board decide whether that was the right action or not. If the CEO believes this person should be gone, the CEO should remove this person. And so you can remove yourself from an emotional connection to that person that's causing all the problems. And it's really hard to do. Quite honestly, this is one of the things that I really struggled with early in my career. I loved my coworkers. I loved my employees. I cared very deeply about my employees being successful and making mortgage payments and having good health insurance so that they can have children and live happily. All of that I was very deeply connected to my team. And when I had to lay some of them off, it was brutal. I felt terrible about it. Later in my career, I've learned that you have to have a healthy level of separation the higher you go in an organization between you and the team members. You can be friends, you can be cordial, you can do social things together, but there has to be a barrier, a line that's not crossed so that you don't let emotions affect your decisions in the organization. Let's talk about that other person, the number 2 who had the CEO who's insane, right? Again, healthy separation from that CEO CEO, and taking time to react to what they say, taking a moment and thinking, how do I want to respond to this outburst right now? And that's also the advice that I would have given myself back in 2019 when I got into this argument with this person who obviously was manipulating me in retrospect. But I let him manipulate me. I let him get me fired up about something and create the situation that ultimately he used to remove me from the organization. I should have taken a moment and thought to myself, what will give me the most advantage in this moment right now? And in retrospect, there was a lot of other things I could have said or done in that moment, as opposed to just going to 100 and full send across the table about to choke out someone. So take a moment and let yourself decide, what is the right response to this? What's the best possible outcome, and how do I make that happen? If you can build that skill where you put a little bit of space between action and reaction, you'll go much farther in your career, trust me. The more relaxed and the more you realized this has all been done before, it'll all be done again, the same people show up with the same bullshit. All of this is exactly the way it was 100 years ago, 50 years ago, 20 years ago, 50 years from now. All of the things, all of the people, we're all the same, right? We're all social creatures, and we're all going to have the same fears, uncertainties, emotional anxieties, all of these things. And so when someone is driving you straight up a wall, take a moment and reflect. What's the best way to move forward here? I think sharing emotion is really important. And I think being authentic in your emotions is really important. And I'm a very emotional person, right? I'm an ENFJ on Myers-Briggs with a very high E and a very high F, meaning that I'm very outgoing and I'm also very emotional. And I know this about myself. It gets me into trouble sometimes, but the reality is that this is who I am. And so when you are this kind of person, when you're a very emotional person and you're an outgoing person, it's going to happen that you're going to let your emotions slide, and you're not going to be able to hide them from really anyone, is what my wife has told me. But you can take a moment when you have that emotional response and think to yourself, what's the best way that I can react to this situation right now? When you can do that, your career will go much farther than just blowing up every time you feel like it's appropriate. I hope this was helpful. And if you have any questions on how you can be better at managing your emotions, or if you have specific situations that you want some help with, just put a comment down below this video and I'll be glad to respond to you to give you some advice on what you're going through. So do that, drop a comment if you need help with how to handle emotions in your career. I hope this was helpful, and I'll see you in the next one.